Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. What I remember about the 2010 World Championship of Public Speaking. For the first time in the history of Toastmasters, 81 district champions from around the globe were to meet in Palm Desert, California for semifinals for the right to vie for the finals at the World Championships. I remember sitting in a conference room in awe with 80 gifted speakers. 9 semifinals with 9 speakers. I remember picking my speaking order for contest number 2. And thinking to myself, I want to go last. I love to go last in a contest. And as they pass the envelope around, I break out into a cold sweat, pull out my piece of paper, unfold it, and the number 9 jumps out on the paper. I remember thinking to myself, someone is looking out for me. I remember just before that contest, a Toastmaster official. To this day, I don't know his name. He must have known I was a speech contestant. Probably the pacing and talking to myself in the hallway was a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
He looked at me and said, "Sir, speak from your heart, and you will always win." I remember sitting through that contest and watching very gifted speakers speak ahead of me, and how proud I felt to be part of that group. I remember walking on stage and shaking the contest chair's hand and delivered my speech, "It's time." I remember sitting down afterwards and saying to myself, it's the best I could have done. It matters not whether I win or lose. When they announced my name as first place for the semifinal, the first thought that came to my mind was, is there another Joe Grondin in this audience? And I remember feeling so proud. And after the contest, people rushed to take pictures of me with strangers I didn't even know. Video cameras in my face, asking me questions. Being whisked off to the media room to be interviewed by Toastmasters International. And I remember as I'm waiting to be interviewed, thinking to myself, I hope this isn't a dream. Because if somebody pinches me and wakes me up, I'm going to be ticked. But I remember and realized that it is a dream come true. I remember the night before, I walked into this huge conference room that could sit 1,600 people plus. And walking on this huge stage, and being on the far right-hand side of the stage, and looking way over to my left, and thinking to myself, it's going to take me 7.5 minutes just to get across that stage. And starting to panic, because I think I'm going to be disqualified for going over time. I remember the 2003 World Champion of Public Speaking, Jim Key, takes time out of his busy schedule to spend with me to tweak that final speech. I remember the next morning, Saturday morning, that we were going to have the contest, sitting with 8 of the best speakers in the world, and how honored I felt to be part of that process. I remember the green room. This is a room backstage for all the contestants to stay if they want to and watch the contest on a TV monitor. I remember Carl Stewart being my props manager. And I remember Carl's responsibility of putting 2 chairs in the middle of the stage and making sure there was a baseball cap on the left-hand chair. And as the speech contest was unfolding, I was speaker number 4. And we're watching all of the speakers speak from backstage. Carl must have known I was getting a bit nervous. Because I walked up to Carl and I said, "Carl, do you remember which chair the hat goes on?" Because frankly, I couldn't remember. And Carl looked at me and said, "Joe, it goes on the left-hand chair, not to worry. I have it all under control." And as I walked away, reassured, Carl speaks up and says, "Or was it the right chair?"
Oh.
Carl knew exactly what to do to calm my nerves backstage. Carl left the room for a couple minutes, came back before I was to speak. He looked at me and he said, "I got instructions from your wife to give you a kiss for good luck." So naturally, I closed my eyes and puckered up. And he said, "Joe, I'll do a lot for you, but a kiss is not one of them." And as they called my name onto the stage to deliver my speech, Merchants of Hope, and I remember shaking the chairperson's hand, walking to the middle of the stage, 1,600 plus people, and thinking to myself, it's time. It's time to do the best that I possibly could. And as I came off after the speech and sat down, Carl was waiting for me backstage and sitting beside me. I looked at Carl and said, "That's the best I could do." And Carl looked at me, and I still remember the exact words. He said, "You hit it." And that was the most wonderful words I could have heard after a speech contest. I remember the interview. All 9 speakers walked onto the stage. And I remember being interviewed, all of us were being interviewed. And the first speaker that was being interviewed, of course, the one question they asked, "How long have you been in Toastmasters?" And this woman said she'd been in Toastmasters only 2 years. And the audience is going, "Wow." And I'm going, "Wow. It took me 6 years to get to the stage." And I'm thinking, maybe I'm a slow learner. So when they asked me that question, I said 1 month. I didn't want to be a slow learner. And I remember them announcing the top 3 and how people came up to me. I remember Jim Kakachi coming up to me. We had a conversation, and Jim said, quite honestly, that speech could have been 3rd. And I remember all the people that were trying to make me feel good. They thought that I was upset. I wasn't upset. It was the best I could have done. It was an honor to be part of that. But what I remember the most is you. Of how I am so grateful for the friends that I had. That speech, 1 speaker, many people. I remember giving Wendy a hug after the semifinals. And I think there were some tears shed. I think there were. I remember the day before the semifinals, my wife hands me a DVD of the individual Toastmasters on that DVD. Darlene was instrumental in that DVD. And all people wishing me luck and sending me positive vibes. I remember the contest, the traveling. Deborah, all of you have inputted into that speech. I can't take credit for this alone. It's you folks. People telling me to be myself. People telling me there's too many I's, not enough U's, right, Steve? People telling me, and all give me this information, and every one of you have played a part in this award. I can't take credit for it alone. It's been said, it takes a village to raise a child. My village is my fellow Toastmasters, and you raised me up to the World Championship Finals, and I will always